Your Excellencies, honored guests, friends, great to have you here. And you've heard it from Dirk Messner. There's a lot on our plates. You've heard we've had convened 12 task forces that in the space of half a year have produced 76 policy briefs from 321 authors. We've been overwhelmed by the creativity and insight that you all have shown. And Dirk Messner and I thank you enormously for this. And in reading all these policy briefs, I've been busy. I've been looking for a common theme, and you'll have your own readings of this. It's all on www.g20insights.org. But the theme that emerged for me is very simple. Just as a thriving economy requires a cooperative society so that the people willingly tackle common problems, so a thriving world economy requires a cooperative global society in order for its citizens to empower their leaders to cooperate with other countries to address common problems. But societies of the world are divided. Through the integration of the global economy, we've achieved not only great wealth and the exit of 1 billion people from extreme poverty in the last quarter of a century, we've also seen the proliferation of global problems: climate change, financial crises, food insecurity, refugee crisis, digital vulnerabilities, terrorism, and so on and so forth, problems that cross national boundaries. There has been a thorough integration of the world economy, but no corresponding integration of global society. And under those circumstances, economic progress can become decoupled from social progress. And the discontent and anger we see rumbling in many parts of the world, like the underground rumblings of a smoking volcano, they are telling us that this decoupling has already occurred. The discontent growing out of inequalities, out of a sense of deep disempowerment in the presence of globalization, automation, terrorism, powerful interest groups. The discontent growing out of a sense of estrangement in the presence of flows of refugees and migrants, the loss of local and national control in the global marketplace, the relentless, often vacuous status-seeking and consumerism that drives environmental degradation, the endless conflict spilling from one part of the world to another, the discontent with all these ills in developed countries and developing ones, the discontent that was palpable in the vote for Brexit and in the American election. This discontent is telling us that social progress indeed is no longer closely tied to economic progress. And this, to my mind, is the central challenge of the G20. And this comes at a time when we are standing at the threshold of another digital revolution, when machines are beginning to take over much routine work. And while human productivity, as we know, grows at 2% per annum, machines' productivity grows at a rate dictated by Moore's law, doubling about every 2 years. And just as machines have taken over many simple mechanical tasks in the past that required muscle power, so they will take over progressively more cognitive tasks that require predictable cognitive powers. And people around the world understand the potential of these developments, both in terms of more goods and services, but also in terms of the potential for further disempowerment and estrangement. This is the challenge that the G20 faces nowadays. And when economic progress becomes decoupled from social progress, it becomes necessary not just to stimulate economic growth in the aggregate, but also to reduce the growing inequalities within and between countries. And not just to reduce these inequalities, but to empower people worldwide to lead meaningful, productive, and fulfilling lives. And not just to empower them, but to nourish a sense of social solidarity that will enable them to be sufficiently secure in their local identities to embrace our global interconnectedness and become willing to cooperate with people very different from themselves in addressing problems that we all share and can only be tackled together. And therefore, the G20 agenda needs to be broadened, and it has been broadened. We saw it last year with China's Four Eyes, innovative, invigorated, interconnected, and inclusive world economy. And this year, Germany's priorities are building resilience, improving sustainability, and assuming responsibility. On this account, it gives me great pleasure to announce the agreement between the leadership of the T20 and the leadership of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN, to investigate the feasibility of long-term transformations required for the implementation of the Agenda 30 and the Sustainable Development Goals, because they provide an overarching framework for this broad vision. And we're also looking forward to handing on the baton from Germany's think tank efforts to those of Argentina, and the valuable half year that will pass between the G20 summit in Hamburg and the end of the German G20 presidency, we hope to devote to a very productive and productive collaboration. So, having unleashed this huge wave of creativity in the T20, we appreciate the need for ongoing future engagement on problems that we all share. And for this purpose, I think we need to do what humans have done from time immemorial when they needed to cooperate to face common challenges. And that is, we need to produce a common narrative that will motivate us all across national and cultural boundaries to focus on the challenges that the world as a whole faces. And in building these narratives, and we've been busy here as well, it will be important in the midst of all our ongoing economic progress to help us stay focused on human needs, the needs to live dignified, empowered, socially rooted lives, and then to produce policy recommendations for concrete actions in that spirit. And so, in the last few seconds of my talk here, let me appeal to you. Remain in touch. This must not be a conference. This must be an ongoing mission in which you engage with us in an ongoing dialogue, think tanks, policymakers, business leaders, civil society. Use the workshops, the conferences, the policy initiatives generated by our community to combine our efforts in the service of the common good. Please join us and keep the flame going. Thank you. I have usefully been reminded by Sebastian Turner that I have another obligation, and it is a very important obligation. That is, as you've seen, we're all under time constraints, and so that we don't feel lonely with our time constraints, the audience sees them as well. And in order to make this as productive as possible, we're squeezing a huge amount of intellectual content into 2 days. We've got a few assisting mechanisms. First of all, there's this countdown clock that you see. Secondly, our moderators have been told to insist on very short contributions and to push for strict timing and ensure that there's a good flow of dialogue between us, a meeting of minds. 30 seconds before countdown comes a sign. Right. And in order to stay on issue, we will have a symbol that will be put on the table that will remind everyone what the subject at hand is. This will be the symbol. And then, in order to provide communication, that is, we will have issue-centered meeting places on the second floor marked by a balloon. And if you want to contact speakers, we've got a facility for drop notes that's also in the foyer of the second floor. You can't miss it. It looks like a shower curtain. We've got all the material that is in the policy briefs, as I said, on g20insights.org, but you'll also find physical copies in the Walk of Global Solutions on the top floor. And then, in order to save time when there are comments from the audience, we have a quick way of delivering a microphone, and here it comes. Isn't that sweet and cool and quick? And one thing I'd like you to be aware of, not that you'll be able to miss it, we've got a lot of dynamic young people among us, 100 young global changers from 100 different countries, in addition to representatives from the YES community, Young Economic Summit from the schools. And these young people are giving us what we need most, an intergenerational dialogue. They have been asked to engage with us in the long term. We count on them to do their job here. And so we are the T20, but they are the YGC 100, and we look forward to our interactions. Thank you very much.